I see creativity as just, in its essence, is problem solving. And there's so many problems that we all face in life. And I'm looking for solutions to wrestling with it and tussling with life. And so that's where I am right now, is just an artist that is looking for a way forward each day to stay in this path of creativity.
Hello, my creative friend. Welcome back to another episode of Create Today with Beth Buffington. You know, I love to bring guests on to the podcast. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to someone that I think you're going to really enjoy. His name is Ezra Vancil, and he is a Texas-based singer, songwriter, poet, and author whose career spans more than 3 decades. He's an international songwriting competition finalist. He's been a Kerrville New Folk finalist, a new song competition winner, and a South by Southwest showcased artist. His music has been featured on VH1, the BBC, and other television productions. He performs as a solo artist alongside his daughter, Cozi, creating music centered on redemption, resilience, faith, and the pursuit of wholeness over fame. Ezra, I am so delighted to have you join us today on Create Today. Please introduce yourself to the audience and let them know a little bit about who you are and where you are and how you got started.
Yes, Beth, thank you so much for having me. I really am honored to be on this podcast. I think it's a treasure for creatives like me, and I'm just excited to talk with you today. Where I am right now is I'm a business owner. I am a musician and a songwriter, and I travel with my daughter and we play music. And I live in a forest out in East Texas, and I spend a lot of time in nature and writing poetry out there on a campfire. And I've had a life of music. I actually come from musical roots. Both my parents are songwriters and musicians. And who I am right now is somebody that's just really embraced this gift of just looking at this world through creative eyes. I see creativity as just it's in its essence is problem solving. And there's so many problems that we all face in life. And so that's where I am right now, is just an artist that is looking for a way forward each day to stay in this path of creativity.
Oh, there's so much we're going to talk about today. And the fact that you are living in a forest. Tell me about your cabin.
I'm a city boy. I was living next to downtown Dallas most of my life. And my wife just got this funny idea that she wanted some land someday. And so we eventually found some in East Texas. And it just turns out that it is a few cabins in a forest. And I mean, it is a forest. The pines are so tall that you hurt your neck looking at the top of them, with critters and deer and animals. And I never thought I would be in such a beautiful place. It turns out to be a lot of work to live in nature, because it's constantly trying to eat our house. But I have found so much of my creativity in the silence that I found out here. And now I will say I do spend a lot of time in Dallas too, but I just found that I needed quiet. Cell phones don't work out here. So I spend a lot of time with my own mind and my own thoughts, and it's just a beautiful place.
That's amazing. I live just outside of Chicago, but I grew up on the western side of Illinois. My mom and dad, they had been farmers all their lives, really craved land. So they bought about 30 acres of forest and eventually built a house out there. And I drive out and see them all the time. I was just out there on Monday, and when I visit, it always involves a walk through their forest. And there is something magical about just getting away from your phone and listening to the sounds of nature. It makes a difference in your head, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't know how much we need this. We need this time to see that the world is alive, that it's going on, it's got its own mission, and that I'm just a small part of this. And that's what I feel here, is that there's this beauty and striving going on in all of life. And I get to see that when I take walks. That's really what I like to look at, is get out of all of my thoughts and look at this world. And it does fuel in me creativity. When I come back, I'm inspired, and the quiet gives me rest in my soul.
When you have that kind of rest, I know that it does generate energy that you need in order to be at peak performance for your creativity. And so, with that in mind, can you share with everyone just how creativity has played a role in the success that you have had in your career? How has creativity been a companion for you?
Well, it came to me very young, and I think it was kind of a given because we traveled constantly playing music. Some of my fondest memories are hearing them write songs in the very thin wall next to my bedroom with my mom's piano. And it wasn't easy. I would hear them kind of tussling with something and maybe even arguing about a lyric. They would write songs together. And I just kind of had this realization of what creativity is. It's not always just enjoyment. I love the word tussle. It's a little bit of a wrestling match to look for things inside of us and bring them out into the world. And so I started at a very young age, and I was signed to a deal in my late teens. I think I was 19 years old, and went on to LA, and I thought I was going big time. And then I was dropped at 21, going on 22 years old with no plan B. But this music life had kind of birthed in me the love of the creative. And so what I did is I pivoted over to graphic design. And it's in the same way. And I didn't have experience. I didn't go to school for this. I just got interested in creating in that way. And I found that through my life, I've just fallen on other creative things because I like this side of me that faces a blank page. There's something about it and works for solutions. And so I would say that everything has somehow contributed to my success in life, even though at the time a lot of things felt like wild goose chases, loose ends that would never get finished. Through life, they kind of weave together and have created a career for me in marketing. I've had a career in graphic design. I've had a career in videography and production. And of course, I've kept music going all these years. And now I'm a business owner, and I run the marketing team. And so all of the knowledge that I needed just came together at the right times. And seeing that, oh, that wasn't a wild goose chase. That was the beginnings of something in my future. And it allows me today, then when something feels like a loose end or the outcome is not turning out, I can go, that's probably going to tie together with something in the future. I'm going to go with where my passion and my heart leads me in this, and then let it go. And just expect that things kind of come together. And as I go forward and I face that, I find that the meaning is there. It comes together. And so I would just say, almost everything that I've attempted in my life has at some point come together as income in my life, which is a strange thought, but it's just the truth of my life.
When you think about it, 30 years of creativity, and some of the things you started, you found reason to use many years later down the road. I think a lot of creatives get started on something, they can't find a solution right away. Frustration sets in, and crumple the paper, toss it in the waste can. It is important to hang on to those ideas because down the road, you might find where that becomes the solution for something else that you're working on.
Oh, absolutely. When I was a teenager, I hung around a published poet, and he was just a guy that was from our neighborhood, and I would play music behind him, and he would perform. And I wanted to do what he did. And so I started to try to learn poetry. And my poetry was pretty horrible. People think that it's the same as songwriting, but it's very different to just have words have that power to them. And so several times through my life, decades apart, I would go, I want to write poetry. And I would sit down and try, and it just was not good. And over decades, I started going, I want to learn poetry, but I think I'm ready to go down to actually learning the skills. I never thought to go learn the forms of poetry. But
Ah,
now I found that interest of actually understanding and reading and loving poetry in this quiet era was leading me to what I needed to start truly writing poetry that is meaningful and powerful. And so over decades, I was doing the little seeds of things. And what I learned in those early days is what didn't work. And
mm,
so that I could know when it was time, when that it reoccurred, that desire that, okay, I'm going to do this, but I can't do it the same way that I did the last two times and
yeah.
gave up. I need to look for what was missing in those times. And what was actually missing was an understanding of the forms of poetry, just starting with the foundations of what is a poem, you know?
Yes. So being a lifelong learner, you have to remember at every age, sometimes you need to go in and learn the fundamentals. I think you wrote somewhere in your questionnaire, you said, learn the rules and then throw them out. It helped your poetry when you learned more about what made a good poem. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. And I say that because in music, I see people being trapped in the rules. So much so that
Mhm.
they can't let that childlike creative out that
Mhm.
might actually capture, and usually does capture, some inspiration that is deeply embedded inside of us.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the foundation to lay that inspiration on top, you're going to be constantly frustrated. And poetry was like that. Once I learned the forms, I understood they're there for a reason. They're there for you to begin. And if you do it enough, you can actually just forget those rules altogether. And you'll see this in great songwriters and poets that they will play with the rules. They will go outside of the rules. And if you know the rules, you know, wow, they just
Oh,
disregarded the
yeah.
entire rules. But it's so cool because it shows that they know them, and I'm stepping outside and I'm going to do something directly from my
Yeah.
heart here.
Yeah. The great musicians take those fundamentals and they make them so innate that they're not even thinking about the language of music anymore. They're just
Yeah.
speaking it, right? So it is that balance of taking learning and making it so innate that it is no longer something you have to think about.
It just made me, while you're saying that, I was thinking, what if we were sitting here thinking of the rules of grammar as we talked?
I know,
We
right?
could not, we couldn't have a conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same way. We need to learn to just communicate. We learn those rules at some point, but we have to let them go because the creative mind, I think it longs for a freedom.
Yeah.
It wants that structure so that it can be free, that you can have this structure that holds it and then go, let it loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do your thing.
Got to be a little bit of friction there. So that's where those rules come in. But then being able to take those rules and then create beyond the rules, that's where real success is found.
Yeah, I think back to my early days in graphic design. The worst thing a client could tell me was, do whatever you want.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was that was a horrifying thing. But if they said, I need these colors and I'm trying to create for this audience
Yeah.
and these are the restrictions, the size, suddenly within those boundaries, I could be creative beyond their boundaries, using their boundaries, where with the whole do whatever you want would just send me into that's the whole universe. Like, where do I even start?
If you're just given that free range, yeah, you tend to go in the wrong direction. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's take a look at your mornings because I have a feeling like during your day when you're actually working, that is where you have those guidelines. Tell us a little bit more about how you walk yourself through mornings and what it's doing for you as far as an artist.
The biggest kind of takeaway I want from morning is for me to remember who I am and what I'm doing here. Because there's just so much noise in this world that I need a moment in my days to go, what's important in my life? A lot of times it's just me writing things and seeing through what I write what is important to me. And remembering that before I go off into this world that's so loud that I can't even hear myself. So for me, it is a lockdown in my day where no matter what happens after that, this will be a time of unstructuredness. I don't have any rules of how I do this. that I revisit myself. I touch on the spiritual to remember there's a much bigger story going on that I'm a part of.
If you're a creative who doesn't have those unstructured moments where you're really just concentrating on your inner artist and you're looking at Instagram and comparing yourself against other artists, you'll find yourself spending time wishing you looked like, drew like, sounded like someone else, and you lose yourself. So if you can have those times where you are away from anything that you're plugged into, away from criticisms and judgment, and you can allow yourself to explore that inner artist without your inner critic being super loud. How do you keep your inner critic from taking over on those quiet mornings? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think the inner critic loves Instagram. Like
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, they're getting out the Instagram.
Let's go.
Because that's the very beginning of that. I'm a part of community and the world and everything, but I have an individual life. And in my art and in my creativity, even in my business, what I want to bring is not what so-and-so did, not what Bob or Sheila did. I want to bring myself to this life. And it's not as easy as just saying I want that. There has to be an exercise of actually knowing who I am. Biggest thing for me is just starting with the spiritual aspect. And what that is for me is really an acceptance of what my life is right now on this day. And when I do that, it kind of frees me. Like I don't have to fix everything or finish everything. It's okay. I've given myself this time just to explore who I am. And I find that it renews me constantly. I'm always finding something in these times, whether it's through journaling or inspiration, reading, poetry, that I am triggering the right questions in my life. Not necessarily the answers, but the questions that are inside of me going, what am I to do with this? What am I to do with my life? What am I to do with my art? That's the questions I want to walk into my day with. And the answers, we get them sometimes, we don't, but as long as I've got the questions, I know I'm heading in that right direction.
Yes. I think when you're allowing yourself to spend time to think just on your own creativity, it allows you to understand how you can think about what you're thinking about. Most successful creatives are interpreting what they see and how they feel about it and what they think about it. And that is what they reflect out as far as their creative voice, their creative message. And it is your voice and your message that other people need to hear. And I truly believe that all creatives are put onto this world to share the goodness that they have to share. And that is what makes our world a better place.
Yes. There's this saying that hit me so deeply about what the artist is doing. And I don't know if I'll be able to attribute it to the right author. I think it was James Hollis that said this. But it is like the birds that have to digest the food to feed to their siblings. And now he was talking about something else, but I took that as the artist because I believe the same thing is that my primary job as an artist is to take what life gives me and interpret it. And I desire for it to be beautiful and good for this earth. And so I have to digest it. And that's what happens in these mornings too, is digesting this world so that I can interpret it and look at it through a new prism in a creative moment.
So that whole idea, the reason the birds eat the food, digest it slightly, and then give it back is they're making it easier to handle, right? The world is so difficult. And what people need are others who can make understanding what you might be going through a little bit easier, because I've been there and I've learned some things and I'm going to share it with you now so that whatever road you're on, hopefully it will be a little bit easier for you.
Yes. Yes. It's like a distillation. Me and my wife actually just put on an old album from the 70s and we just went, Oh my gosh, it spoke to us because it's our story.
Yeah.
This song has distilled the many complicated aspects of our story into its true heart, into something that I can take and go, that's me. I can't say it, but this song could say it for me.
Yeah.
So many love songs are just about infatuation.
Yep.
But I want to write songs through my life. I want to write my songs as a 40-year-old and a 50-year-old and a 6-year-old about love and what is love now. And I am giving these experiences so that I can give them back to people who need them. And I only say that not in a prideful way, but because I know that I need that. There's times in my life where a song or a poem or a book will touch me so deeply because I feel understood just by that work of art.
Yes. Being understood. That is so key. When you have lost a relationship that's important to you, how many of us have had that happen to us? And we just want to be in a dark place and listen to our music because it speaks to us. And we all feel like we know that musician because they knew us at a time when we were so vulnerable. Or music that helps you celebrate. We all have that music that when it plays, you are taken back to a decade where you were either really happy or you were falling in love. You are suddenly in the car at a campground, you're at a museum, wherever you were where that song first touched you. And it never goes away, right? So
it's
powerful.
It's a friend for life.
It's
life.
Like yeah.
The most powerful, and it's not just music. It's I have art pieces in my house that have touched me like that.
Yes.
And the reason we have art is because we can't, with just our dry words and language, there's things we cannot say.
Yes.
And an artist, the great pieces of art, they touch on something universal, or even specific. Sometimes a piece of art is just specific to my story. Mm-hmm. And they are my friends through life. I carry them with me. I've got my playlist, but I've got my albums and my books, and they're my friends. Yes. And if I ever go through that again, I pull out those songs again, or if I'm thinking about it, and visit my friends that understand, that have been there.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
And so as a creative, follow where that universe is pulling you because someone needs what you're doing.
Beth, yeah, I have to tell a story here because I have a piece of art in my life that is so special to me. And it ties into what we're talking about, loose ends. So after I got dropped from the label, I eventually ended up working at a college as a painter, and not a creative painter. I painted walls white. The college had a gallery and they would have new artists there. And one time I was walking through this gallery and I just saw this collage. And I nearly started crying right there with my paint bucket because it moved me so deeply. And I went up and read it, and the name of the piece was If I Could Keep You Like a Pressed Flower. And again, I didn't know why it moved me so deeply. Later, I realized we had a neighbor who had just passed away, that me and my wife had nursed her in her last days. And what I could feel is this feeling of mortality. I was very young. I was in my 20s, and just, how we get these feelings and we lose somebody. And so I wanted to buy this piece, but I didn't have enough money. And then I came back. I even talked my family into loaning me some money to buy it. And then I went and it was gone. And I couldn't find the artist. And so years later, I told my wife about this when we were about to get married, about this piece of art. And I had written a song. You could look it up. It's called Error of Days. The lyric in it is If I Could Keep You Like a Pressed Flower. And I told her why I wrote this song and a piece of art. So my wife, behind my back, found out who the artist was and contacted him to buy it. And he said, I'm sorry, I already sold it. And so a decade later, I went through some years of real bad substance abuse at this time, but I came back to myself and got sober and recovered. And I decided to write a blog about this piece of art because I had a picture of it now and just what it meant to me. And I put out the song again, Era of Days. And the artist saw the blog.
Oh.
And he showed up to my next show with the piece of art.
Oh my God.
And presented it to me on stage. And what he had done is take his entire catalog to the person who had bought it and said, pick anything you want, but I need that piece back. And he got it back and he presented it to me that night. And he became a friend that I needed, another creative friend that I needed while I was getting sober. What was he thinking when he made that? I don't know, but it touched something so deep in me that it's been 3 decades of my life, and I have it sitting there on my mantle right now.
That is an amazing story. So many years in the making. If you were able to buy that right away when you saw it, the story wouldn't have been deep enough for you yet, right?
No, no, it taught me that there is meaning in this life.
Yeah.
We might not see how it's all working out, but there is some meaning to this life. There's a pattern, and that I just need to go hold on, embrace the things that I love. And you're right. What if I just got what I wanted?
Yeah.
It's a testament that sometimes we don't get what we want, but maybe there's something even better down the line for someone else or us.
I love how you said that. What if I would have just gotten what I wanted? I know that in your life, things have not always gone as expected or as you would have liked them to go. But look at you. We are talking today. You are a deeply sensitive, creative musician who has so much to share. And it's because you've learned so much from those valleys.
Yeah. I mean, roots matter.
Yeah.
Strong roots matter. I look at all the hard things that have happened in my life, and I'm grateful for them now because they've made me who I am. I love the music that I write now and the poetry, and it is all written from the ingredients of my life.
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't have it any other way because what I wrote when I was young, it's okay. Some people like that, but there was no roots there. The music could just blow over, where I feel like what I write now is meaningful to me, and that matters a lot. It's actually a picture book of my life that I can give, and it helps heal not just me, but my family. I've recently, this new album I have, Morning and Midnight, it focuses a lot on family. I've written a book, and my mom reads that book daily. She'll write me and tell me her reading for the day because it's poetry and small little journals. And I believe that through me healing through art, that it's actually healing my family. So if all these hard things didn't happen, there would not be these riches of beautiful things to give. In my journal, I will write, I consent to today, whatever comes and to whoever comes. I'm saying yes to whatever comes, because whether it's frustrating, good, bad, or whatever, I know that it somehow plays in to the story, and I know myself, and it's going to play into a piece of art eventually.
Oh, I love that. Oh, and so everyone that's listening, you need to look up Ezra Vancil on Spotify or wherever you listen to your music. I listened to a lot of Ezra's music since I scheduled our interview. I am a person who, in the things I read, the music I listen to, I love depth in the richness of the word. And when I listen to music that has depth, my brain can see what you were trying to say as far as a message. And what I've seen from your music is there is depth in there for learning, for understanding, for getting through, for celebrating, for appreciating. It's all there.
Yes. I think I use this term for what I do in music now in this period of my life, which is I'm redeeming the past.
Yeah.
I take all the mistakes that I've made in my life, that others have harmed me or have harmed them, and I want to make something, like we talked about, distill from it something meaningful and beautiful. So some might be a little harder. Some were written during a divorce, and some are written for joy and happiness. But I want to bring the beautiful element out of that and what I've learned. And so, yeah, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah.
Because my music is a part of my heart. I try to put out there in the best way I can.
Now, I think a thank you needs to go to musicians like you who, when you felt vulnerable, you were willing to open up and share the emotion, the story, the success, the failure, whatever it was you needed to share at that moment. When you share, it does exactly what we talked about with the birds. It takes hard stuff and it recreates it so that it can be nutritional to that spirit that is languishing in whatever similar case that
Mm.
you were writing about. It is a message you had to share because people need to hear what you went through and how you got through it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks go out to musicians like you who have the courage to do that very thing.
Yeah. And it's something at this age, that I'm at, that we're at as artists. I'm still creating, but I have gathered so much. And so it's a time of empathy, of understanding that I need to look here. This is where the work needs to be done. I'm in a time in my life where I want the work to be, how do I give? How do I help that next person up and not make it hard for them, because it's hard enough as it is. I need to make it easier for each one of us to climb, metaphorical mountain.
I so agree with that. So, I'm going to ask you a question. Knowing what we've just talked about, we're touching on areas where there is confidence. So let's look at how confidence in yourself helped you be more creative.
So I actually work on my confidence separately as its own thing. I've had times where embarrassing things have happened on stage and it went really bad, and my confidence just goes away. It got so bad after I failed at a contest, and I failed pretty badly on stage. And I was playing for 2 decades. I could stand on a stage and I can entertain an audience. But after that one show, I couldn't get it out of my head. And now each time I played, fear would grip me. And this was new. I actually got a coach that wrote a book that I loved, and I called him and asked if he'd coach, and he did, and helped me with my confidence back on stage. And so it's something that I really need to hold on to, because I want to go out into the world and present, like we talked about, being authentic. I can't do that if I'm not confident. I
Right.
can't be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable on a stage and authentic to connect with people. And so there's a lot of books that I read to remind myself, first of all, that I'm worthy. They've
Mm,
asked me to step on their stage. I
yes.
can stand on it and I can be myself. It's a work in progress, though.
I think that it doesn't matter how many years you've been in business or how many performances you've done or how much art you've prepared for clients. There is a vulnerability in your head. Ugh, I don't know if this is going to be good enough when I'm doing artwork, and a lot of my art is digital. So it's prepared and I hit the send button on an email and off it goes. And it's like shooting your baby into space. It's terrifying. That never goes away. But I know one thing about confidence that I teach to my students is that if you never feel awkward about something that you're doing, you'll never grow to a new level. You'll never get to increase your talents or your experience or your confidence. So you have to feel awkward and out of your comfort zone in order to just grow. So that's part of it, right? Do you
Yeah.
feel that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So one of those coaches that I worked with, he had the idea, and I completely embrace this, is that our fears are a compass pointing the other way than what we should go.
Yeah.
So it actually tells us where we need to go. Wherever our fears tell us to go, oh, it's the other way. And so we worked on first identifying those fears and doing little things in our life to confront those fears. Because I know this from experience that what I was really desiring was on the other side of that fear that kept me. In my young life, I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I sounded. I didn't like how I talked. So I refused to have a video camera. I have no recordings of my live shows because I was so stuck on this idea that if somebody sees me, they won't like my music. Well, on the other side of that is a wider and a larger expression of who I am. And so that fear was pointing the wrong way. And I finally stepped over it and I started doing videos. I started talking and I went, oh, wow, there's Ezra. There's a whole guy there that never got to express himself. And so I really do look at fears. I try to identify them and just little bitty things. What can I do to just confront this a little bit and just push it a little bit and see what that fear is.
Yeah, just push yourself a little out of your comfort zone, but not do a giant leap where you're going to fall flat. And then you'll say, see, I told you I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what your inner critic is going to tell you. And I love your point of wherever your fears are facing you, you need to just 180 it, right? That's a really good compass.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody can look in their life if they've lived long enough and go, yeah, this fear kept me from doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing.
I also love that you said when you had some confidence issues, you went and got a coach. That was a super brave thing to do, to just say, this is beyond what I can do all by myself. I need some help. And you went and found that person that could help you look and hold up a mirror to what you were doing and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And here's how we're going to do it. And you can get past this. Finding help is never a bad thing. Never a bad thing. So,
yeah. It's a big thing in my life. I learned this when I was dealing with substance abuse, that I had to have somebody else, exactly that. I use the same exact word, to mirror me, because my thoughts were all messed up. I needed to say them out loud and hear them back and go, yeah, I don't agree with that.
Say that. Yeah.
If you need help in an area, go to somebody that has expertise or who has been through that same thing and has overcome it. Go to that person for that particular thing. Don't go to a good businessman that has a bad marriage and ask him a marital advice,
No.
And coaches are great because they have honed their expertise in a certain area.
So we talked a little bit about how confidence has helped your creativity. Now let's flip it around and let's look at how creativity has helped your confidence.
Now, these things are kind of weird. I will actually go back in my past and look at making an album and how it was just a blissful experience. And I want to document that. And when I'm losing confidence, I want to use those creative moments to remind myself, hey, you can be confident. And speaking of like going on stage, one of the things I do now when I go on stage is because I start having fears. Am I going to remember this part? Am I going to forget this or play this wrong? I tell myself, hey, remember last week and the week before that, you played it just perfectly at your house. So if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere. So I'll actually pull from my life. I'm looking at doing a new double album with my daughter right now, and it scares me. I'm like, I don't know if I can afford that. And how long is it going to take? I'm going to go, you just made a double album, and it was wonderful. The feeling of completing that was one beautiful time in your life. So let's go do it again. And it gives me confidence to walk up and show up.
Confidence creates creativity, and creativity then creates the confidence. And if you can allow yourself to listen to your own message, it will help you feel a little bit better about the work that you're doing and the message that you have to get out. So sometimes the person that needs your creative message the most is yourself.
Yeah. Well, I have to add, there's my book of poetry I wrote, which is a book of journals and poetry while I was making my album. It literally what you're talking about. I would wake up in the morning because this was a huge project, bigger than anything I'd ever done. It was costing a lot. People were involved, and I had to show up and cameras and videos. And I wrote almost an entire book of telling myself, you can do this, and why I do this, and remembering, why do I do this at all? And so I might tell the advice to somebody else. Why don't I give that advice to myself and hear it?
Well, they always say that people who are writing the self-help books, they wrote the self-help book to help themselves, right? So let's talk about advice that you have for other creatives. I know we touched really briefly on learn the rules and then throw them out. But do you have any other advice you would give to a musician that was where you were when you were younger? What kind of advice do you have to someone who is wanting to really get going and has goals and dreams they'd like to reach?
The biggest advice I give is the answer is in the work itself. A lot of times we do so much. I do planning too, but we get stuck there in
Yes.
reading about it, watching videos about it. The answer is in the work. And there's this quote by, I think it's Somerset Maugham. They asked, how does he get inspired? And he says, I show up at 9 a.m. and I'm inspired. Just like the
Yes.
answer, the inspiration is in the work itself. So that's the biggest thing, is we can get lost in these getting prepared. You'll actually find what you need to find in the work. You'll actually find the things you need to learn in the work. It'll tell you. And so get to the work, start in that,
Yep.
break off if you need to learn something, but continually go, what I'm looking for is in doing the work. You do learn the fundamentals of things, but even in that time, you should be putting them into action so that you can understand what you really need to know and what you're really lacking. And so that's the biggest thing I would say to anybody in any creative field.
You still need to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Yes, there's a acronym that musicians know. It's called GAS, which you have GAS means you have gear acquisition syndrome. So it's what you do when you're really afraid to make your album, is you just keep buying gear or looking at it. And what that is just a way to put off doing the work.
Doing the work.
And you put it off because, like you said, it is hard. So that's why it's called the work. It is work sometimes. And
Work
sometimes
is
it's
work. Yeah.
it's work is work. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to be able to get in there and appreciate the fact that you get to do this work and enjoy the tussle that you'd mentioned earlier. Just enjoy wrestling with those problems, because some of the best creativity comes from the hardest problem that you had to solve.
I find so much about myself, and I grow so much by facing those problems. Like you said, putting them down, but not running away, coming back, because there is so much for us in that wrestling match that happens with us in a blank page.
Yeah.
Personally and creatively and in all areas of our life, if we wrestle with it, we'll find gold in there.
Yes, there is gold in there. Speaking
In
of
them hills.
gold, can you tell us where we can find some of your treasures? Where can we find you? Where can we find your music, your books, your poems?
Right now I have a double album out, and it's called Morning and Midnight, and there's an accompanying book with it called Mornings and Midnights. And you can find that on my webpage, and it's just my name, EzraVancil.com. And from my webpage, you can find all the other stuff, YouTube and Instagram and all that. But that's on vinyl right now. It's not released completely out in the world. If you want to listen to some streaming stuff, I have several albums that are out streaming now on any app you have. You can just search my name, Ezra Vancil, and it'll pull up my music. And if you want to reach out to me, then probably Instagram is probably the best channel if you want to talk with me.
And all the links for things that Ezra just has mentioned will be in the show notes, so that you'll have a live link that can take you straight to his website or to his Instagram account, anything that you're interested in following up with Ezra on. So, but I do highly recommend that you go on your favorite streaming platform and find his music, and then go farther. I mean, if you really want to enjoy Ezra's full scope of the message that he has to share with whatever you're walking through right now, go on his website and find his books and really balance out his music with his writing. And I think then you'll get the full package. Yeah. Ezra, oh my gosh, I could talk to you all afternoon.
I know.
So thank you so much for joining us today. I have learned so much about your creativity, and it is exciting. I love the stories you've told and the gifts you've shared today about how you are putting your creativity out into the world to do some really good things. So listeners, what are you going to take away from what we've talked about today? What are you going to consent to with what you're going to do as you create today? Think about that. How can you take yourself out of a comfort zone and go a little bit farther with whatever creativity you need to share with the world. Because as we've talked, everyone is creative. We all have a message that we need to share with the world. What do you need to share? And are you sharing it right now? And when you do, my friend, it will help you stay creative. Ezra, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so blessed that we had some time together.
I feel lucky that you had me on the podcast, and keep up the good work. I'll keep listening to your podcast. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind. Everyone, take care, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.